Now that you've administered a focused interim assessment block using the test administrator interface, we're going to jump into the California Educator Reporting System, extract the data so that you can inform your instruction or create intervention groups. Let's jump right into it. This is the actual sandbox for the California Educator Reporting System. I'm not going to go into the live data, but this is an 8th grade FIAB or IAB. This is the read informational text. Now remember, when you do this, you may have all of these session IDs open. If I only have one session ID, I only get a few students. Maybe you did this in small group. Maybe the principal is actually looking at all the data for the school site. You will need to select every one of the session IDs because maybe it's a different date. And then you will get all 72 students, for example. If you're a middle school teacher and you teach 4 periods of ELA or 4 periods of math, and if you choose to give the science FIAB, maybe you teach 3 periods of science, you can actually select all periods and download that by together. But maybe you just want to do 1 period at a time. So this is just telling me that I have a certain percentage of students that have met the standard, a certain percentage near, and a certain percentage below. And there may be just a slight glitch because it should actually give me the percentage there. So when I show it all, one, I can actually log in and see, let's see, it's not showing me all 72. Okay, so maybe what it's doing is showing me just a few of the students right now, but when I extract it, you'll see it'll give me all the data. But the instructional resources are there. And note that this was a non-standardized test. That means that students maybe had peer-to-peer conversation. Maybe the students worked on the this whole assessment in groups, but then they answered on the test administrator interface so that you could have live data to look at to inform your instruction or create intervention groups. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to export the CSV file. And when I export it, it's over here in the corner. So I want to close this out because I feel like it's not giving me good data. And that's okay because I already did export this. But again, I'm doing middle school and then I'm selecting 8th grade, for example. But again, this is just an example. And then this is the one that I did. And okay. And then now you should be able to see all the data. So I can select all of these. And then, yeah, you can see the percentages now. You also can see the results by student. You can see the results by item. And you can see the results by key distractor. Now, when you go to export this data, it is in a comma delineated format. So you will have to save it as an Excel spreadsheet if you want to keep the data. So here is that data. And when I open this data, what this data looks like when it's raw data, it looks all over the place. And then I'm going to show you how to create this as a color code. The first thing you'll notice is that it's hard to see everything. So what you'll want to do is go between row A and 1. And this little triangle here or square, go ahead and double click that and make sure it's highlighted. And then go in between one of the columns and double click. You'll also notice that these names were created for a CSV file. So this is the state ID for the students, first name. I'm changing this last name with purpose. I don't care about the date. I don't care about the session ID. And quite honestly, I don't care about the school. You may want to keep it for periods if it gives it to you that way. And I may want to keep the year just for now. I know that this is the assessment name. This is the subject that was tested. You may want to keep that if you are downloading both ELA and math IABs. And then this is a long title. I'm just going to do grade. The status was non-standardized. The scale score achievement level is over here. So I don't need 2 of these. So I'm going to get rid of this, for example. And then what I'm also going to do is I don't like this title. It's too long, so I'm going to put language acquisition. You can do it this way. You can write it out if you want. And then you also will get the language of the student. I like to rename these Hispanic, Latino, for example, American Native or Indian, Asian, Black, African American, maybe Native Hawaiian, um, Pacific Islander, um, two or more races. And then if there's accommodations, and I sometimes your accommodations will already be there if you did this, if your school site uploaded them, or if I uploaded them for you. So what I will do immediately is, let me go to row 1. I'm going to right click and select format cells. Format cells. Then I'm going to select alignment and wrap the cells. I'm going to go ahead and center it here. And then when I do that and I go to this left corner and I double click, the ones that will want to adjust will adjust. But I like these to be all the same size because they're a demographic group. And then I just slide it. As long as I highlight all those columns, I can slide between two of the columns and they all become the same size, which I really like. And since it's still highlighted, I will center them. You usually will have to do it twice. If I don't like this, like I realize that I can just do that. But this works for me. And then maybe the language, I might center that. And then as I scroll over, I start to realize that maybe I'm going to keep migrant status because I know that there's at least one migrant status. I might highlight these 3, move them over together and center them, for example. I might center assessment type, like that. I might even make that smaller. And, it's a bit cleaner. So the next thing I would do is go between column A and row 1. I'm going to go to sort and filter. When I go to sort and filter, I'm going to select filter and I'm going to color code these. I can color code these by deselecting all of them and selecting just one. Highlight them and color them. I can do that with low standard, for example, and then I can do that with near standard. Now, I already did this, so I'm not going to spend that much time doing it, but I want to show you what it looks like. So I did that for you. You could, if you wanted to, you could find all of your English learners and color code them. I typically like to go to more colors and select a purple, and then I will change the font to a white so you can see it. And then I leave English only alone, but maybe I'll go to initial fluent and color code them another purple, for example, maybe a lavender. And then the last one, I'll go to my reclassified. Why? Because I want to follow my English learners to make sure that they still are getting everything that they need as well. And then maybe a dark, dark purple, and then white that out. And then select them all, and then I can spot. So if you do, now this one, our students, we're going to have a lot more English learners. So just know that. But this is just sample data. You can also organize it by race if you want it, but considering there's not as many depending on the actual race, you can, I'm going to do this, you can just kind of leave it. And if you wanted to sort just to see how students did by their demographic group, you could do that. The other thing you can do is you can highlight this, go to view, select freeze panes, and you can freeze the top row. So when you scroll, that top row is frozen. Now, I want to show you something. Now I'm going to select a new tab. I'm going to do 2 new tabs because what I want to do is I want to go back here. And I'm going to go to results by student and then select results by item. See, there we go. So now I have all of the items. And in this situation, there were 12 items. So I'm going to go with this was probably an IAB. And before it goes away, notice that the export for the CSV is the student data up here, but this down here is for the item. So now I'm going to export this information. I'm going to open it up. And this is, I'm going to highlight this and hit Control C. You can right mouse it and do it. And then I'm going to go back to my Excel spreadsheet. I don't need this one. I want this one. Now I'm just going to do by item here, highlight the entire spreadsheet, Control V or right mouse, and paste. I will, click in between the rows, and now I can start to, I could, just like I did before, go home. So you have these tabs up here, and then you filter it, and now I can filter it by difficulty level. So maybe I want to do difficult first. Maybe I decide that I'm going to use the darker color for the most difficult. Maybe for moderate, I'm going to use a different green. Um, and then for the easy, I'm going to use even a lighter green. So now when I have all these, I can start to really look at, well, what was easy and what was hard? How did kids do over here? I'm going to turn this filter off so you can see that the scores are here. So how many students got 0? How many students got a 1? And then note that the reason why these are not, there's no score here because, for example, number 2, number 8, number 11, number 12, and number 18 are scored out of 2. So that's important to know. You also could take these, you can decide, okay, well, how do I organize this? Go to that left corner, go to data. Now you can do this also in the first spreadsheet, in this workbook. When there's more than one spreadsheet in this, it's called a workbook. I can go to data sort and make sure my data has headers. And now I'm going to go to the item difficulty, and I'm going to reorganize them just to put them together to see how students did. Now you can see that it'll show me how kids did with the difficult. 58% of the kids got this one right. But the easy ones, for this one, 76, you would expect that to be a little bit higher. And then same with down here. Like they either got it right, or wrong with these two. That tells me that maybe number 8, this is 8 and 12, maybe there were 2 answers. So let's go and find out what that looks like. So now we can go to key distractors. And you'll notice that in this situation for number 3, there were 3 answers. Okay, now I'm going to refresh this because it's being fickle. Again, it's sample. Yours shouldn't do this when you're in there in your live data. So again, let's go back to the one we were doing and make sure we select every one of the SSIDs. But again, I'm in the sample one, key distractors. That's better. And they may not all have key distractors, but this is what is showing up. I can export this one. I will open these. I will highlight in the left corner. I am using Control C. You can right mouse click and copy. Then I'm going to go to that other one that we did. Go to this sheet. Type in here key distractor. Now, if I'm going too fast for you, you can pause and come back. Go to this top left corner and go ahead and select in between any one of the columns, not the cell, the column, when it's highlighted. And then you can start to look at, okay, number 3 had 3 answers. Number 8 had 2 answers. Now, remember that number 8? Now, I'm curious about the other one, like number 12. I don't know why it's not showing it to me, but it's not. So we'll just go with what we can see. But yours should give you all of the problems. So, and this is nice because now I then, again, can organize these. Like this is the item number, it gives you the target, it gives you the difficulty, it gives you the standard, it shows you who got full credit, what's the percentage of full credit, and then it shows you how they did here. So you could, if you want to do A, D, and F, were correct answers. Now, just for your own information, I'm not saying you need to do this. This is optional. But I'm going to do this for some of the teachers with them so that I can help them, because this data will start to inform how your students are doing. So C and F, I didn't mean to do that, C and F, and then A and F. How am I doing this? I'm holding down control. And then I can go in here and highlight it. And then I can say, okay, so C is right, D is right, B is right, C is right, A is right, and D is right. Again, I'm holding down control, and then I know which ones were right. It just for my information. But what that does for me is that I can start to see how students were doing based on their scale score. And now what I can do, I'm going to turn off this filter. Remember when I did a data sort? I can go back to data. I can do a data sort, make sure my data has headers. And now I could do this by performance level. I can organize it and say, okay, so this group of students, that's a group on its own, possibly a small group. These are the, right here. I'm highlighting this because when I highlight it, it shows me in this bottom right corner that there are 13 students that could use some support. That is, you could go through, you could pair these students up with another student. You could show the items on the board. And why? Because the research shows that when kids talk to each other, they hear it differently. Because we as educators have done this over and over and over, and sometimes we forget that kids have probably learned it once. You can go to the instructional resources and go to the tools for teachers and showcase those answers. I'm not going to go there or the items and have kids talk about, well, what did they do? How did they do it? You could have them work in a small group. You can pair up one student that had the above standard with students that had near and below in groups and have them present out each item, for example. You could create a Google Edu protocol using Google presentations and have kids explain it on slides and have them talk. Not only does that have them work out the actual problems, but it gives them speaking and listening capabilities, which is really kind of fun. So I would recommend that you pull this data and kind of have fun with it. But this data, again, not live public data, but it is very helpful. If I was also going to do it after I sorted it, just one more sort, I could add a level. And then I could add a level based on their language acquisition. You might have to scroll a little bit. See, now I can see, okay, based these students, look, an EL student below standard, but an initial fluent English proficient, that's somebody I'm going to start looking at reclassifying. And now, I need to highlight that. I missed a student. We have reclassified and they're near standard. Why? What is happening? And then you start to look at, well, what was their language? What language did they speak or do they currently speak alongside their English? And then you can maybe sort by student group, like what is happening with this particular student group. So don't let this sort and upset you, but I am willing to do a session one-on-one or in your small group if you would like to learn how to do this. Think about some ways that you can use the data. Maybe you can actually log into the assessment portal and look at the interim assessments and put those assessment items on the screen. Let the students talk about them. Maybe you could divide them into small groups and have students present out using an Edu protocol. Maybe each team or group puts them on a presentation slide and they talk about it and share it out. That would certainly add to their speaking in the classroom. Also, use it to inform intervention groups. You can organize it by student group, demographic group, and say, what is happening? Tell me what you were thinking when you did this problem. You can have peer-to-peer conversations. And those small, maybe it was just one thing they needed to fix. Maybe they didn't realize they had more than one, two, or even three answers that they could have applied to the assessment item that they were doing. So think about that. Let me know how you're using the data to inform instruction. Comment. Tell me about it. Make sure you subscribe. Also, tell me how you're creating your intervention groups. I'm very curious on how you're doing that. And be sure to like the video. Come back. Tell me what videos you'd like to hear or listen to around the state assessment. CASP, or even the item portals. And remember, SBAC does have the sample items available too. Thank you so much for watching.